Hello everybody and welcome back to another blind commentary of Samurai Jack Season 2 Episode 7 as per usual. That's the outro. Yeah. It's a fun season. It's a pretty fun season so far. Although I must say, even though I have enjoyed this series like profoundly, it's definitely a really freaking enjoyable series and it does things that I really do applaud it for. It does lack a certain kind of punch to it. It really hasn't had any huge standout moments so far. It has had a lot of good moments, and it is constantly solid, but it hasn't had any, that kind of iconic moment, anything that really seals the deal and just makes it memorable forever. It has had a lot of really good potential for that, but it hasn't really reached yet that kind of height. That doesn't mean it's bad, it just means that it is just solidly good, but it isn't like wavering in its quality. And I suppose it's kind of good. At the very least, it's consistently good. Yeah, I know I'm starting off with a negative note here. Let's just get on with the show. I mean, I still do like the show quite a bit, so, Well, okay, so, yeah, I know, I'm immediately pausing because, yeah, this is something that I do have to note, though, and that is that the openings of the episodes are always freaking strong. Like, they just start off with either a very good mood-setting portion, or they start something that sets a good example of pacing, or they just have this kind of really intense start that just immediately grabs your attention. So the show does openings really freaking well. That's something that I haven't noted yet, but that certainly is a noteworthy attribute of the show. So well, it's good to show emotion, I suppose. Goodness. How many times has Jack come close to... I wonder how, that's at the very least, I remember that's like the third or fourth time that he's come close to, succeeding in his mission. And it must be, as we noticed in that incredible burst of emotion, that it must be, well, incredibly frustrating. So, that must be really hard on him. Really kind of you gotta give a kind of a pretty good props for his mental fortitude at the very least.
It is
Okay, well, that's rather well done. Awkwardness and just alien feeling there, because geez, that feels really off-putting there, and that's really good. Of course, it's really good when their show feels does something, has such a clear mood to it. I wonder where they're gonna take this though. It's a good setup, I must say, but yeah, what it's gonna build up to, I wonder.
has ever reached the summit of Fatum.
There has been a surprisingly lot of legends and myths that Jack has actually, fulfilled, like prophecies that he has fulfilled, and such legends that he has already created. It seems like, I mean, I might be over-exaggerating there quite a bit, because on retrospect, it feels, now it feels like that, but on retrospect, when you think about how many stories were based on rumors and legend and all that, not that many episodes actually, all things considered, it feels like there were a lot more stories based on legends and stories than there actually are, since most of them are just random events. Not completely unconnected events, but, random events nonetheless. But really, that just makes it seem like they're God damn, I can't speak. The storytellers, it feels like the storytellers would be relying on this crutch of, oh, it's a legend, although it really isn't that they really are not relying on that, but there is a slight feeling that that might be the case. It's really not, but, you know, that there's a slight feeling there that requires a bit more thinking than should be necessary, but yeah, I know, it's a completely rather long tangent, goddamn. And Jack knows it.
Not yet.
That's a rather lovely little smirk of confidence, must say. You know, all things considered, that journey really didn't look dangerous or hard at all. Really. It seemed rather easy, and that trapped-filled dungeon that Jack ventured through quite a few episodes back in Season 1, that seemed far more dangerous than this. Well, clearly, obviously, it was trap-filled, but still. There's some... Now, thinking about that, it feels like there must be a catch here, because this seems just far too easy so far. It's just venturing forward. So there must be a catch here. What catch? We'll see soon enough. I hope. Otherwise this seems... no, the show wouldn't do that kind of stupid pull. Of course there must be a catch here. Let's just continue. Oh, a satyr. That's a... I wouldn't say that's a formidable opponent, but Jack has beaten quite a bit stronger and more dangerous foes already, so... Yeah. But that's at the very least rather... At the first time we've seen something like that. Not really unique, but still a first time we've seen any creature like this.
You go on and collect your...
Okay. Well, now it might be quite a bit more dangerous situation, I must say. That's such a non-lethal way to, you know, defeat your opponents. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, that might seem like a very non-lethal way to go around defeating your opponents, but now they are gonna starve to death. That seems quite cruel. Although they are goats, kinda, maybe, so they could just eat grass. But still, if they are carnivores or were carnivores, basically, they are doomed. Although they are still goats, so unlikely.
That is correct. It is all right to
No, this is the first time we've seen their arms, actually. Quite a bit, like in motion, moving, climbing, you know? What the heck was that? Let me see that again. What is that? Is that a spider? I feel kind of sick, but that is... That... For a throwaway creature that unique is really interesting. God dang, I want to see that in action. So... I mean, it obviously looks like a freaking spider, but it looks like a fusion of like Cherubi or... I mean... mountain lion? No. Antelope? Can't remember the name of that in English. Still,
That's a really cool design.
You? Okay, that's a really freaking cool encounter, I must say. An airborne battle like that. That's really quite cool. Especially against something that's so really quite good that Jack had to beat with basically his wits and quick thinking. That's a pretty badass battle. I like that quite a bit. Also, there has been now twice allusion to the sword, quite a bit more, and its importance and, well, Jack's heavy reliance on that. There has to be something else to this, because I mean it wouldn't make sense that they would have focused on it so much already. Well, twice, but you know, it would be quite an odd way to use storytelling methods, or focusing, like, it could be a misdirection trick, but most likely it should be something that would pay off later on in this episode. Let's see. You? Now that's something I was wondering about, their nutrition and how they would survive this trek without having any food with them, but those are not eggs, they look like fruits, I think. That's an interesting thing. So they probably studied about this? I mean, there's going to be an obvious moral in this episode about brains over brawn, but still, how's Jack gonna live? He needs food. I wonder if they're gonna give it to him. Probably not. We'll see. Wow, Jack's just getting... Well, this is actually something a bit good that the show does, even though there's never really any tension that Jack will die or anything like that. It really does go... The show goes to quite a lot of lengths to show that Jack does get quite hurt in these encounters at the very least. I mean, yeah, as I have said previously, it is mostly with the clothing getting ragged, and often it is with some kind of serious-looking wounds. But he's getting really ragdolled quite often, and it's actually a pretty good sign to show that there's at the very least struggles. It just makes it a bit better, you know? A bit more tension. And it makes the fights a bit more interesting when they are exchanging blows instead of just, you know, the fights being one-sided. I'm just thinking of a certain example that just comes to my mind rather painfully, but yeah. Well, this is a pretty good way to show how grueling that journey can be, even without being, you know, flat out hazardous, as I said, as in that trapped dungeon. But this is certainly having a lot more of the environmental hazards and making it, in that way, quite a bit more horrifyingly dangerous of a journey. And that's pretty good. It's differences in kind like these that make the show what it is. The fact that there are so many varied styles of dangers and environments that Jack has to trek through, and that's pretty good strength of the show. It's very, very well utilized here. And with Jack there saying it is impossible, that's a very good way to, once again, the show does this fantastic thing with its openings. It is foreshadowing, it is building up to a future punchline. And here is a payoff to that. Whereas in the Jack said in the opening it is impossible, here he now repeats it. And that's a pretty good way to, you know, reinforce these kinds of messages. Yes, these are just storytelling cliches, storytelling tropes 101, but, you know, when a lot of shows don't utilize them, you learn to respect when some shows just do the basics correctly. That's a kind of a sad message, but this show really does do basics correctly. And the more I think about it, the more sad it is, but you know, still. And this is something that I wanted a bit more of the series, and now it finally is giving it to me. That sounds a bit weird. The fact that they are paying off from previous episodes like this, of course, continuity between episodes is something that I greatly appreciate. And we have gotten that with the Scotsman in this season, and now we are getting it with both this episode. I think those minors were something that we have seen in the previous season, but that's also a very good callback to the previous episode itself, and I love that. It's just good. I really like continuity between episodes as a long, stretching story. And of course, it doesn't need to be continuous story, but callbacks. These are the things that I love. Now, One Draw Yonder does them quite fantastically, and even though it also slowly migrated to using references to previous episodes and storylines. And here, Samurai Jack is also doing it quite a lot as well. And I hope this trend continues, because it's fantastic when done properly. Let's continue. Okay. Well, this is actually this is an episode that does have a lot of highlights about the show's greatest strengths, and those are using a variety of environments to create differences in kind, and a variety of opponents to also reinforce that. And this is something that the show does quite well, and here, oh my goodness, it is done so well. With the first opponent, Jack beats him mostly by just his wits and quick thinking, and the second opponent with, well, luck. That's not a cop-out, that's just completely fine that he wins by sheer fortune alone. Okay, not sheer fortune, but you get my point. That's a good strength of the show, and I like that they are using it, because the show does use it to its greatest strength, and that's good. It's good when a show knows what its strengths are and uses them. Another thing that the show here does introduce to us is calling back to, well, older episodes. And although the show has done that with Scotsman, it is, as I said during the episode itself, it is something that I really love. And I really would like the show to do that a bit more, because, well, there's a good point why they haven't done it yet, and that is to set up more things to call back to. And that makes a lot more sense, because it's just pacing in a grand sort of thing, a bit more greater overarching story sense. They need to set up things that they can call back to, and that requires more time and episodes. But now they are finally getting that kind of solid basis that they can use as a calling back, and that's pretty good. As well as going back to the previous episode, which already established quite a bit of, quite a bit of emotional and personal motivation for Jack, and I loved that episode, and this episode called back and reinforced that, and that's really quite good. And this episode is basically just a proving grounds for Jack to have more confidence and be more resolute, and that's rather good. Even though it is rather obvious that Jack has to be mentally quite strong. It's just good to reinforce that with actual, literal, physical, unlikely hardships, and this episode really does do that quite well. And one thing I liked here was also calling back to the previous episodes. Now, one thing that I mentioned that the episode did not do was reinforcing the motive of the sword. And I don't care that much about it, because it's a tool for Jack more than anything. it's a thing that I would like. I often like when main characters bind with their weapons like that, you know, on a more personal basis. But it's unimportant here because Jack's mental strength is more important in this episode than that. Still, it does quite a good thing about foreshadowing the. Well, this is a good place to showcase how the episodes themselves foreshadow their ending. With one of the mountain monks just flat out stating we are journeying to the top and in search of this power, if there even is one. And in the ending, of course, we found that there is no power at the top of the mountain other than your self-fulfillment. And that's a pretty good thing that they foreshadowed that, because then it doesn't feel like an ass pull and it just makes a bit more sense. And actually, it more makes the episode feel like an emotional growth episode for Jack, because he got frustrated quite a few times during the episode, and this just shows that he has to grow up and get stronger about that, even though that's not in the literal sense of growing up and getting stronger. He's quite strong already, but you get my drift. It is a good episode, and it uses quite a lot of also just visual storytelling, which I have already said on quite a numerous occasions that is one of the show's great strengths. Yeah, I quite like the episode. It just is one of the showcases of the show's greatest strengths. It still isn't, like I said in the very intro itself, it isn't a showcase of the show's, and it isn't a really bombastic, great, just an iconic thing that I can latch on to, but it showcases some of the show's iconic features. So I still want a big, good episode that I can point to and say, this was freaking awesome. This moment just defined this show for me. But since the show, it's not that the show is lackluster, but it is something that needs to be appreciated in completion instead. And that's such a really different style of a show. It is an honest-to-God adventure series. And that's not bad, but it's just harder to recommend it when you can't point to an episode and say, this blew my socks off. And I don't really dislike it, because it's a different type of show. And differences are what make life worth living for, you know? It's certainly good that the show is quite distinctly different from, well, basically everything. Yeah, that's about all I have to say. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll hope to see you all in the future. Have a great day and stay awesome. Gunmu out. Thank you very much for watching.